Now, last week, as we reported on Moneybox, we learned that the price of gas to heat our homes was going to soar, but that price is at least capped. Now, though, it's emerged that around 800,000 households whose homes are heated by gas are not protected by the cap. They are in what are called heat networks, communal systems, where several homes, usually flats, are all served by one boiler. The residents pay for their heating through the management company or housing association. And because those organisations have commercial contracts, the price isn't capped as it is with domestic fuel. And their bills look set to treble, even quadruple in size. Tom and his girlfriend Emily recently bought a basement flat. They've a communal heating system shared with 4 other households. Tom, what are your fuel costs?
My fuel costs are about £55 a month, and that's for gas only right now.
That's the uncapped gas. What do you think it might rise to?
Well, that's the scary part, Paul. I don't know. It could rise to 300%, so I could be paying another £100 a month just for
Yes.
gas.
That's obviously a lot. Now, you do have your own electricity supply. Is that expensive too?
So I pay £45 a month for that, but I have control over that, so that I benefit from the domestic price cap, but
Yes.
it's still a significant amount.
And of course, you'll get the £200 discount in October, though that has to be paid back over 5 years, I know. Will
Yeah.
you get the £150 council tax rebate for people in
I
bands
won't.
A to D?
No, unfortunately, my flat is in the band above the council tax rebate, so I won't be benefiting from that either.
Right, so you won't get that. So stay with us, Tom. But listening to that is Stephen Knight in Bristol, director of the Heat Trust. That's a consumer protection scheme for residents who use these communal and district heating systems. Stephen Knight, this seems to be a problem for many hundreds of thousands of people. Why has it been allowed to develop this way?
Well, the system of centralised heating, communal heating or district heating is relatively new technology in this country, but it's widely used across Europe. And indeed, the government wants to see vastly more homes on district heating systems as we tackle global
Yes.
warming issues and net zero, because it's a key part of the strategy to get low carbon heat.
Yes.
But at the moment, most of it's gas. Most of it's produced by gas.
Yes, but it should be cheaper. I mean, in the past, I've often heard it
It,
said as the way out of expensive fuel bills.
indeed, indeed.
All flats heated by one boiler, it should be cheaper. Why is it now so expensive?
Well, it's because of what's happened to wholesale gas prices. So until recently, wholesale gas prices have been perhaps 1.5 pence a kilowatt hour, and commercial gas prices have been much closer to that than the domestic level, so much cheaper. But now we've had this perverse situation where, because domestic prices are being held down by the cap, commercial prices have actually significantly overtaken the domestic level. And that is really hitting people on these communal and district heating systems at the moment.
I suppose you could say, though, that they're just paying the market rate, whereas the rest of the country is protected against that.
Well, I think that's right, and to some extent that's right. But I think the one thing that the price cap does is, as you say, it protects people from the prices going up in one big hit, and it sort of smooths the increases over time. And
Yes.
that's why these consumers, in particular, some of them are facing immediate, very big increases of 3 or 4 times, and that I think is unsustainable for this sector.
Yes, I mean, one person, Harry, has tweeted, maybe we've had a lot of tweets about this, I must say, saying flat
Yes,
owners face 500% increases. That's six-fold increase.
yes.
Is that possible?
Well, we've seen examples of residents being told their heating was going to go up 700% in one
Wow.
case, well, in several cases actually. But I think that was based on the peaks that were happening in gas prices in December, when the sort of wholesale price went up massively, sort of 10 times the long term
Yes,
average.
it has come down a bit, though of course we
It
don't
has
know what's
come,
going to happen. Now, the Department for
indeed.
Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy told us that we are giving Ofgem, that's the regulator, new powers to regulate prices in this sector in the future. Do you know when that will be or what it will mean?
Well, sadly, it's still going to be a few years away. It's going to be probably 3 years from now, and it's very welcome. The sector wants to be regulated. Heat networks want to be regulated. We provide a voluntary system, but it only covers 1 in 10 consumers at the moment. It's not good enough. So proper regulation under Ofgem is what's needed. but it is too far away to protect the consumers affected right now. And so we do need urgent action from the government in advance.
Action like what, briefly?
Well, very briefly, I think there's three things. Firstly, I think a discretionary fund that perhaps could be held by local authorities to help people who are facing, sort of 300-400% rises in their heating bills, because that's probably the only way of getting money to those residents.
Quickly, the other two, if you could.
I think in the longer term, a proper package of support that recognises the increases these residents are facing. And thirdly, more action to insulate the homes and to cut inefficiencies on some of these networks to save wasted gas.
Yes, indeed, and that applies to much of the general housing stock.
Absolutely.
Tom, you've been listening to that briefly. Any comfort for you there?
Well, it's bleak, isn't it, Paul? I don't see much comfort there. It's good that in 3 years' time the sector will be regulated, but there's nothing really for us right now.
And in a word, you'll survive it till then?
Hopefully.
Tom and Stephen Knight, thanks. And Tom didn't want us to use his full name. Now, we talked earlier